everybody, my name is Tanya and welcome to my June wrap up. So I have absolutely no idea how it's suddenly July and suddenly July 10th. But anyway, I'm finally getting around to filming this. I have had another very interesting month. I seem to be saying that every month now. I haven't done any filming for quite a while. I did admittedly get very sick in the middle of June. I spent 5 days in bed, didn't read a thing, which was very disappointing. Not a very good sick week at all. And 3 weeks later I've finally got my voice back properly, so it's taken a very long time to recover from that one. It's just been really lingering. I think I'm pretty much there now, so I'm very pleased about that. But I had a very interrupted reading month. So I finished a couple of books fairly early, and then I had a huge period where I didn't finish a thing. That kind of encompassed where I was sick, but I think it took till the 20-something of the month to finish anything else. And then I managed to finish quite a few things in succession, so I've ended up with 7 books to talk about today, and let's just get into it. The first book I completed in the month of June was this one, which is They Do It With Mirrors by Agatha Christie. This was actually my May Agatha Christie, which I didn't finish until the first few days of June, because that seems to be the way I'm doing things at the moment. But that's okay, I'm keeping pretty much on track. And so this is one of her Miss Marple stories and a first time read for me. And as always, I really enjoyed it. In They Do It With Mirrors, Miss Marple goes to stay with an old friend of hers. She's had a conversation with another old friend of theirs who has recently seen this particular friend and has the sense that something isn't quite right. And so Miss Marple sets off to try and investigate kind of what this feeling is. And when she gets to Stradygates, which is a rehabilitation centre for delinquents that this old friend and her husband have, she also gets the sense that maybe something isn't quite right. And so we go on, we get to know quite a large cast of characters. This isn't the first marriage of Miss Marple's friend. She is now onto her third marriage, I think. There are a lot of offshoots and kind of stepchildren that we're getting introduced to at this point in time. And then there is an incident where her husband is threatened, and at the same time somebody else is shot in the building. And it goes on from there. So as always with Agatha Christie, there's plenty of twists and turns, and we have Miss Marple detecting in her general quiet way. And I had some inklings or some suspicions about who the eventual whodunit is, which I was quite pleased about. Definitely not the whole situation, but I did have this thought in my mind that did actually turn out to be the case, so I was quite pleased about that one. Definitely another solid addition to my Agatha Christie project. The next book I completed in June was also towards the start of the month, and is an audiobook that I listened to half in May, half in June, and that is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. This, of course, is the 5th book in the Harry Potter series, and I have been continuing on with my reread via the audio versions narrated by Stephen Fry, which continue to be fantastic. I probably don't really have all that much to say about this beyond it was wonderful, I loved it. This point in the read-through that I'm doing, I'm getting to the books that I've read less, and so I believe the first 4 books had come out when I first read Harry Potter, but I read the last 3 as they came out, which is why I've got the hardback version of this one as opposed to the paperbacks that I've got of the first 4. And so I have only read this one a few times before, I think, and so everything wasn't quite as crystal clear as the early books have been. There haven't been so much of me predicting the lines that are coming or knowing exactly what scene is happening next. I'm getting a few more surprises now, which has been really nice. I am continuing to absolutely love this reread, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to the end and having the whole picture again fresh in my mind, because it's been a long time. Then, as I said, I didn't complete a book for a good couple of weeks plus. I was sick during that period. As I said, I had no voice, so I haven't been able to film anything, and just really didn't feel like doing anything. In the midst of this, there was also my failed attempt to participate in the Term Topple Readathon. I've been participating in quite a lot of readathons lately, and my success rate with them has been diminishing as time goes on. I completed exactly nothing in those 2 weeks, so yep, that's why there wasn't a Term Topple wrap-up. But I did finally finish one of the tomes from that, and that is Arcadia by Ian Pearce. I absolutely adored this one. I thought it was so fantastic. I first heard about Arcadia, like probably most of you, through the lovely Jen of Jen Campbell. She made a whole video about this one, about falling in love with the book, which I'll link down below, and I can only echo everything she said. I fell in love with this. I was completely immersed in the world or worlds within this one. On finishing it, I wanted to turn around and immediately restart and to pick up on everything that I missed this time around. I just loved it a lot. So I don't even really know how to describe this one. In essentials, it's about 3 different kind of interlocking worlds, 3 different settings that we're in, and a number of characters that are in these worlds, and maybe start to intertwine and cross over, and it is just so well plotted, so well put together. I am still thinking about the ending and how everything turned out. This one's really got something for everybody. There's some political intrigue, there's some mystery, there's a romance, there's some elements of time travel or parallel worlds, there's a, bleak futures and literary paths, and it's just a perfect package, and I loved it. I'm realising that I've actually said absolutely nothing about the plot and who we're following, and I think I am just going to leave it there. I don't even know how to describe what's going on here, and I think maybe it's best to leave it at that point. Next up, I finished something completely different, something that I've been working on for a good couple of months, and it was about time that I finally finished, and that is this one, which is From the Outer, Footy Like You've Never Heard It, edited by Alicia Sometimes and Nicole Hayes, and this is an essay collection about Aussie rules football, and I absolutely loved it. So I've spoken about before, I am a footy fan. I have my team, I have a membership, I go to the games. It is something that I am passionate about at the time of the game, and then let go when it's not. And this is a collection of essays or personal stories from different people about how the game's touched them or dealing with a particular theme or issue around the game, and I think the idea behind it is fantastic. So AFL is very much a white heterosexual male domain, and while we have some multicultural players and we're trying to embrace and to celebrate those, it is in essentials a white straight male place. And this collection, instead of focusing on that, invites stories and essays from people from the outer. And so instead of that base, we're now getting female voices, we're getting homosexual voices, we're getting foreign voices or indigenous voices, we're getting literary voices in this one, which on the back it describes it as perhaps the most dubious to be in this collection, because sport and literature don't necessarily go hand in hand a lot of the time, and so this is kind of stories from people you wouldn't necessarily see as your traditional football fan, and I love that idea, and I think it was a very important collection in a lot of ways, a very lighthearted and wonderful collection in a lot of ways, and it's giving voice to people who don't necessarily have a voice when it comes to traditional media in the AFL, and I think that can only be a fantastic thing. Next up, I finished another audiobook, and that is Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens. So I interrupted my Harry Potter reread to have a Dickens segue, which was absolutely fine. I read this one with Alicia from Ex Libris and Ange from Beyond the Pages, and it was really great to read this with them, although I did finish significantly after the rest of them, because, I'm not surprised about that, but it was still really great to talk about this one with them and to hear their thoughts. So Nicholas Nickleby is one that I didn't really know anything about going in, except it was obviously about Nicholas Nickleby, and so everything that I listened to, and as I read this one, everything was a surprise. So this is the story of Nicholas Nickleby and what happens after his father passes away and leaves himself and his mother and sister quite destitute, and they go to his rich uncle Ralph, the brother of the deceased Nicholas Nickleby Sr., for help, and he takes an instant dislike to Nicholas and refuses to aid them, or the ways that he does aid them puts them in horrible situations, and it's all about him kind of struggling and trying to make his place in the world and to protect his mother and sister, and I really enjoyed it. There are some things about this that maybe aren't very well fleshed out, and the way things wrap up at the end, it's quite neat, but at the same time, sometimes I just like an ending like that. It just makes me happy. So I didn't have a real problem with this one, for all that there are a couple of things that I wish could have been expanded a little bit more. As I said, the storyline of this one kept surprising me, but also the characters kept surprising me. Nicholas, at the beginning, I felt like it was going to be quite a weak and timid character, and he's quite mild-mannered, but then every now and then he breaks out the badass, and it's amazing, and so I was, cheering for him in those moments. I think Dickens does villains so incredibly well. He's got some fantastic villains and some people in here that you love to hate. He just does characters all round really well, I think, and I love his huge sprawling cast of characters. This is another one. We touch on a lot of different people along the way, and they all have these vibrant, ridiculous personalities and names. He's great at making names, and it just comes together as this really great package that just, it made me really happy, and I really enjoyed reading this one, and I'm so pleased that I'm getting through quite a lot of Dickens this year. He's an author that I've meant to get to and never really have. I read a couple before starting this year, but I've really added to that this year, and it's been a great experience. Next up, I finished another audiobook, although this one was a lot smaller than the last one, and that is The Warden by Anthony Trollope. Recently, I did a video about some authors that I have on my shelves that I own multiple books by, but I've never read any of their work. I've done 2 of these now. This original one, where this one was mentioned, and also one that was focusing just on fantasy series. I'll link both of those down below if you haven't seen them. But I got a couple of comments on that video about this book in particular and whether I'd like to do a buddy read, so I said yes. And now I've ticked off Anthony Trollope from that list. So I read this one as a buddy read with Jane from Miss Jane and Caroline from BBC Girl 520. And although we haven't really had anything much in the way of discussion around this one, I am really pleased for the push from both of those to finally get around to reading this. I was okay. So I've been hearing a lot of not so great things about this lately, but I've also been hearing equally fantastic things about the latter books in the series, so I'm definitely intrigued to read more of this series and more of Anthony Trollope in the future. I don't really find myself having much to say about this. And so basically this is a story about the Warden of Barsetshire, which is Septimus Harding, and what happens when he is accused of drawing a greater income from his position than he should. And to complicate matters, the man accusing him is in love with Harding's daughter. This triggers a scandal in the town and deep reflection on the part of Harding, and it goes on from there. It kind of fizzled out in the end, like it didn't really have a big ending that I think maybe could have made this. I appreciated the humour and the way that it was told, in that I saw a lot of wit in it that I enjoyed, but it was also not really well told in other respects and quite dull, I guess. So I enjoyed it well enough. I'm intrigued to read more of Anthony Trollope because I think I enjoyed his writing style, in that I enjoyed that injection of wit in it, even if I didn't really appreciate it in this case. And the last book I'm going to talk about, I did finish, I think, on the 1st or 2nd of July. The 1st of July, I think, but I'm including in here because it was meant to be one that was completed in June, and that is After the Funeral by Agatha Christie. So this was my June book for my Agatha Christie read-through, and I really enjoyed this. So this is one of her Hercule Poirot stories, and again it was one that I had only read for the first time this month. The funeral mentioned in the title of this one is that of Richard Abernathy, who is an incredibly wealthy man, and following the funeral his family have gathered together to hear the reading of his will to find out how that wealth is being distributed. And after all is revealed, his sister Cora is heard to say, well, it's been hushed up really well, hasn't it? And when she's questioned, she says, well, he was murdered, wasn't he? And this, of course, creates quite a stir. Everybody there is kind of putting it down to her eccentricities, but she does have the reputation of saying uncomfortable truths. And then in the aftermath, the next day, Cora herself is found viciously murdered, and things go on from there. As always, there's lots of twists and turns, and I really enjoyed how this played out. It was a really great edition. I really quite enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend it. And so these are the books that I managed to complete in the month of June. So if you've read any of these ones, do let me know, and if you have any questions, let me know what some of your favourite books from the month of June were. As always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!